Sales Babble is brought to you by Wingman. Wingman, your source for actionable sales intelligence. This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 425. When selling with a wingman, you're never alone. An interview with Shruti Kapoor.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Welcome, Shruti. Are you ready to babble?
Absolutely.
Shruti, I'm very excited to have you here on the podcast because you have been a sponsor. Wingman has been a sponsor of Sales Babble for quite some time. And to have the founder, the CEO on the podcast is quite the honor. Thank you.
My pleasure to be here. I am ready to babble about sales.
Well, why don't we start with Wingman? It provides, and I know this because I've been reading ads for it for the last few weeks. It's all about helping sales professionals and managers and business executives and founders. In your experience working with your clients, what do you find to be the fundamental challenges that sellers face, and what are the consequences that they have from not overcoming those challenges?
Yeah, I think, having been on the other side, right, one of the challenges that sellers definitely face is they feel that they're kind of on their own in this journey, right? And when they try to seek help, it's pretty hard for them, right? So an example would be like, you're getting, say, 10 leads a week and your colleague is also getting 10 leads a week, but somehow, your leads are not converting as well. And then you're left wondering, did I not do my follow-up properly? Did I screw up something else? Or maybe I'm just being really unlucky and I'm getting really bad leads. Now, it's really hard for salespeople to go diagnose that or to get help on that, because very often managers, will go and look at the CRM data to help diagnose or help. But that is even shittier, right? We all know why people ever go to CRMs. Sales reps just don't. I think that's one of the big challenges with sales. You feel that you're on your own, and if you want to get help, you don't know how.
Yeah, it's a lonely business in that, and unlike other industries where the boss tells you what to do, the boss gives you work. When you're in sales, you got to go find the work. You got to go find the clients, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to create your own work.
Yeah, and that's weird compared to where most people are at. What other challenges do you see your clients facing?
So the other big challenge that people face is there's, somehow work feels very disorganized, right? So by that, what I mean is that, one day you're probably in a meeting where, the product team has called you in to share product feedback that you're receiving from the customers, right? On another day, you're probably speaking to the marketing team, trying to give them feedback on, why you're not getting enough leads or why a lot of those leads are not qualified. Right. And then apart from that, you're trying to keep on top of all of the different leads at different stages, trying to go and check, how their product usage has been, trying to coordinate with customer success, maybe with legal. So it's just many different threads, and you're kind of required to stay on top of all of those. And very often something, somewhere you're going to drop the ball. And today, people, outside of Wingman, don't, I feel, have a good window of knowing where they should be focusing their attention on.
I mean, this is very troubling. The things that you're speaking about, I've also seen in a market research study that I've started here on Sales Babble, that people do feel lost and not too certain what to do, what the next thing to do. So you somehow made a decision to enter this a very competitive market in the area of, like, I don't know, do you put yourself in that sales enablement space?
Yeah, I mean, we like to call it actionable revenue intelligence. But yeah, I mean, it is at the end of the day about enabling sales reps do their jobs better.
So, what motivated you to do that? What motivated you to say that this is a market that I want to reach out and help?
It started out as a personal quest when I was, leading a small sales team, and I had all of these problems, which were a little bit more accentuated in my case because the sales, the product, and the marketing teams were not co-located, right? So they were in different countries, and it was just a nightmare to help product and marketing even understand what the customers really wanted or cared about. So that's kind of how I initially started out on this journey. And while you say that it is highly competitive, I would say, to some extent, fortune favors the bold, or you can look at that in hindsight and say that you were just bold to do it, or you can say that maybe I didn't fully appreciate how competitive the space can seem. But fundamentally,
I get that.
yeah, and fundamentally, what happened for us was, even when we started exploring going further, we realized that while there were people who were trying to capture the conversations that sales teams were having with their customers, it was still, like at level zero, right? Like you still needed to build so much out of it because the information is fundamental and everybody understands that it is valuable, but how you use it and how you build a product around it were, still relatively unknown. So for us, what we felt was that, listen, a lot of products in the sales world are focused on helping the manager get visibility, right? But what we really wanted to do was to say, listen, the manager knowing doesn't help, right? Because the manager is not going to write your next follow-up email. The manager is not going to do your next call. You really have to go and be able to make the salesperson understand what they should be doing better, and ideally enable them so that when they are on that next call, they actually know what they could be saying better or differently. Right. And what we realized when we spoke to a lot of managers was they were like, hey, we love to do coaching, but I just don't have enough time to do it. Right. So coaching sales reps was always something that was somewhat aspirational. And I say that, with a double meaning where, while people want to do it, they don't land up doing it. And so, the problem that they came and told us was, listen, while we have an enablement function or while we want to enable people, we are not quite sure whether we are able to do that. And if there was technology that could help us do it, that would be phenomenal. And that's kind of where I realized that, listen, that problem was largely unsolved. Most times managers were just getting like a postmortem. And what we wanted to be able to do was do surgeries because that's how you save lives and deals.
I've never understood how it is that managers said that they couldn't find the time to coach, because the whole part of hiring people is to boost your personal productivity because you can't be at multiple places at once. I just don't get that.
But I'm sure you're not surprised when you hear that.
No, I'm not. That's the mysterious thing. So, so some managers have playbooks and things like that. Is that what we're talking about here, or an SOP? Is that the kind of solutions that you're trying to provide?
Yeah, so I think a couple of different types of things, right? So one way to think about it is I need help as a rep, or like, the points of intervention as a rep are either, if you look at it at a deal level, what could I be doing better at for this deal, right? And those could be things like, hey, I don't think you've involved the right decision maker yet. So that is one part where we come into play and we provide alerts to the reps and to the managers saying, hey, we think that this deal might be at risk because of these reasons. And those reasons are comprehensive and across all of the information that we gather from, emails, calls, meetings. So that's one part of it, right? The second part of it is where can I help a rep get better prepared for a call before they even go on a call? And that is, again, that could be already part of their SOP in terms of saying, hey, go and read the previous CRM notes. But the idea is like, one, can we help them with better information? And that could be from their CRM, that could be external information from, data enrichment sources, etc. But we are also providing it to them, a couple of minutes before they hop on the call, so that they don't have to go searching for it, and you don't have to hope that your rep has the discipline to spend 5 minutes before the meeting, clicking on 5 links and preparing. And then the third, point where you can intervene and help is, of course, during the call, and that's where we are helping people with, either behavior or content cues. So it could be like, hey, you've been on a long monologue. Why don't you pause and ask a question? Or it could be things like, if customer asks for a discount, can we show them talking points around, hey, this is how you can talk about ROI, or you can talk about this particular customer story. And then, the other point of intervention, and this is what we hear very often from managers, is I think my sales reps don't follow up well enough. And everybody is well-meaning, right? Because the sales reps, of course, want to make commission. The managers, of course, want their sales reps to make commissions. But what happens is, like I said, there are too many disconnected threads. You put down the phone on a customer, you have another call in the next 5 minutes, you move on to the next thing. So we are also helping people kind of do better follow-up. So today people can go in, like they automatically get a Slack alert once, our system has, recorded and analyzed their sales call, which is a couple of minutes after they put down the phone or end a meeting. And then it'll actually allow them to click right there from Slack to say, hey, I want to send a follow-up email. And the email will be pre-filled for them with things like next steps, customer pain points, etc., that were discussed in the call.
Don't CRMs do this?
But CRMs require the sales rep to, be disciplined and take all these actions. The idea here is that because we are recording the call, we are transcribing it, then the AI knows exactly what was talked about. We don't need to rely on, the rep's memory for remembering when they should be doing the task or what was the next step that was discussed on the call, etc.
I'm glad you brought this up because I think that leads to the next question or that I've been having in my mind is what have you done to differentiate yourselves from the rest of the market? And it sounds like this is a bit of it, this idea of taking the calls, converting that voice to text, and then leveraging it, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, a couple of other players in the market do this today. But the way we think about this is different on two aspects. One is we are not just trying to create like another big data dump or data repository that gives more visibility to managers. What we are trying to do is say that, listen, increasingly everybody has more and more data and more intelligence, but none of that really makes a difference unless people can act on it, right? So two ways where we are different is, one, we are saying, hey, the salesperson is the person who needs to act. So let's focus, a lot of the outcomes from the product onto the salesperson, not just the manager. And the second part of it is, let's not just make this another tool where people can go review, maybe go in once a month if they feel like it, or once a week during a pipeline meeting. But can this be a tool that's constantly assisting them, so that it's proactively helping them get better rather than waiting for a meeting where somebody says, hey, you didn't do that well.
I got it. I like that. I like that a lot. To pivot a little bit here in the conversation, this is something I've been really wanting to chat about. I was reading your biography, and you guys, Wingman actually went through Y Combinator, the incubator accelerator out in Silicon Valley, correct?
Yeah, we did.
What was that like? How did you get into that? That's actually quite an honor.
Yeah, I would say that it was definitely one of the things on our checklist when we were starting up, saying, "Hey, it would be really cool if we became part of Y Combinator." And in fact, my co-founders had applied to Y Combinator previously with another idea, and that had gotten rejected. So when this time around we applied for it, we were not like quite sure whether we would make it, and we were so excited when we did. And for me personally, I've literally never spent time in Silicon Valley before that happened. Of course, my two co-founders had spent almost a decade there. So for me, just going there was like scenes from some of the popular TV shows.
Oh,
It
like
was fun.
Silicon,
It
the
was quite an
TV show
experience.
Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
So yeah, it is straight out of the book, as you would say.
And what were they able to do for you? What did you learn? What was the big takeaway from being in Y Combinator?
Sure. So, maybe just for context, right? Like the Y Combinator program itself is, I would say, fairly light touch, right? What they're trying to do is, essentially one, create like a bootcamp environment where you have a well-defined period and there is, a distinct milestone at the end of that you're working towards. And you have the sense of community where everybody else is also trying to hustle towards some really ambitious goals. And you have partners, right, the Y Combinator partners who you can go and approach for any topic that you want. So there are lots of open office hours that you can do. But besides, that structure, really a large part of what I learned or I experienced through that program was just hearing the stories of, so many famous founders directly from their mouths, right? Like, the founders of Stripe, the founders of Airbnb, Justin Khan, where they're just, not just talking about what got them to succeed, but they're actually talking about all of the hard things that they had to do or all of the things that they actually failed to do. And that was really valuable because, when you go into the startup world, a lot of times you just have this rosy picture of, articles that you see on TechCrunch about success stories. But, whether it's a success story or a story of a failed company, there's so much, pain and sweat in between. And I think having exposure to that really helped us build character. And I think to some extent, when we went through our own ups and downs, we knew one where to look for help, and we knew that we were not alone. And I think that really helps.
What's been your biggest challenge in launching and being successful at Wingman?
So I would say we've had like multiple challenges. That might take too long, but I would say that the biggest challenge for us and in general, right, for many startups that I see close at hand is how do you get early customers to trust you, right? When you don't have a brand, the product works, maybe doesn't work sometimes, and you're still trying to figure out whether the problem that you're trying to solve is valuable and whether the problem is actually solved by your product or not. Right? So you have this constant imposter syndrome, of course, but the biggest thing is like your customers actually don't think that they can trust you, or your prospects don't think that they can trust you. And to some extent, for us, the challenge was even more so because we didn't come from, any relevant background, so to speak, right? It wasn't like any of us had been in the SaaS industry for a period of time. We'd, of course, all worked at great, well-known companies, but, in kind of different fields. And none of us had like, a decade of experience in sales or something. So to some extent, the proxy for trust in an early stage company is really the founders. And so if you don't have relevant backgrounds, then that probably makes it harder.
I get that. I get that. The vast majority of the startups fail. I think it's like 50%, don't get past 5-6 years. One or two are highly successful. What's the one thing you think you've done that's that's brought you success? So something that other companies don't do.
Yeah, so I think very early on, I think I did two things that really helped us in the long run. One was when things were not working, just went back and spent so much time with the customers that we had, in observing everything that they were doing, in understanding exactly what challenges they were facing, and what was the biggest reason they even initially spent the time and money with us to try and solve the problem. And I think that really helped us in both getting conviction around what our product direction should be, and of course having happier customers. The second piece was branding. I think a lot of times people, very early on are very focused on saying, hey, listen, I just need to get customers. I'm going to use any method, I'm going to bombard people with emails, etc. But what happens is that if you don't spend enough time and energy in building, your brand and the brand for the business, and also I think a lot of times founders, depending on their personalities, might not be that comfortable in going all out, and putting themselves out there and building a brand around themselves. But that is really really important, because early on, you and the company is very often one and the same in the minds of everybody outside. So yeah, I think those were two things that I spent a lot of time and energy doing, and I think that really paid off.
I really agree because I love your branding. When I first heard the very name Wingman and started reading the content around it, I'm like, this exactly describes the business. I think your branding's brilliant.
Thank you. I'll take that.
I absolutely love that. Um,
Though the credit
where,
for the name Wingman goes to my co-founder, but yeah,
yes.
I'll take the rest of it.
Well, it takes many people to paddle the boat, right? So, and the trick is to get everybody to paddle in the same direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, where do you see your guys going in the next 5 years? What's on the horizon for Wingman?
I think there is still a lot of pain that salespeople face in their day-to-day jobs, and I
Yes.
want to reduce a lot of that pain. It's probably the simplest way to describe it. But yeah, I mean, for me, literally, I feel life is too short for people to be, doing work that they don't enjoy. Right, that's kind of my motto, both for our employees and for Wingman, when it comes to sales teams. So yeah, the idea is to maybe reduce a lot of the pain for salespeople, make them happier, more efficient, and of course get better at their jobs, so that they can earn more and they can have better lives.
Is there one problem you're focusing on right now that you're looking forward to solving?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that we are looking to solve for salespeople is helping them take better actions during every interaction with the customer. So yeah, I think that cuts across, like I said, many different points of intervention. But very simply, could I literally, if I literally had somebody sitting next to me and telling me, hey, you could be doing that differently, would I get better? I think the answer is yes. And yeah, not everybody gets a chance to hire someone to do that for them.
Yeah, yeah. I know we're repeating ourselves, but I think that's probably one of the biggest issues salespeople have is they just don't follow up enough. And study after study has shown that people got to follow up at least like 9 times. And it's not like you're bugging the person that you're reaching out to. Probably half those times you reach out get lost. They go into spam or it gets deleted. Like if it's an email, right? Accidentally, or if it's a voicemail, the person you're selling to, the last thing they're thinking about is buying your stuff. They got they got other
Absolutely.
they got other problems on there. But if they but lots of times you can follow up with someone like the ninth, 10th time and they'll go, "Oh, I've been meaning to get back to you. I totally have this problem." I'd love to chat with you about this. And then you're like shocked and you thought, oh, I thought you didn't like me. I thought you weren't interested. I thought,
Absolutely. I tell people that I almost use that as a test, right? Like if somebody sends me a really good first email, I would read it. I might even, kind of file it away in my mind somewhere. But the chances are that I would not reply to it, right? I would almost use that as a test to see like, okay, this person could do the first step, but are they organized enough to actually be able to do a good follow up? And yeah, and then that might also determine, will I get good quality of service? Like, is the organization going to be able to support something, or is it just going to be a one-off ad hoc thing?
that's a really good point because the salesperson is the face of the company. And if they look organized and they look professional, then customers can't help but think, well, maybe the product is probably professional. The product is probably organized. The product is probably going to help me. Yeah. But all reflects on that salesperson, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They are definitely the face of the organization for your customers.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're the face of the customer for the organization.
It runs both ways. You better make sure you're doing a good job with your salespeople.
So, Shruti, if people wanted to reach out and connect with you and chit chat with you about your experience at in being a startup founder, or about Wingman, what's the best way that they can connect with you?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can look for Shruti Kapoor and Wingman, and I think you should find me.
I'll make sure and place that in the show notes. This has been fun. I'm so glad you were able to visit us today. I really want to thank you for sponsoring Sales Babble. It means all the world to me. I've really enjoyed working with you guys. It's been really fun writing the ads for Wingman, and I really hope that I've been able to help promote your product and that you guys will continue to grow into the future. So thank you very, very much, and congratulations.
Absolutely. Pleasure being here. Thanks so much.
So to follow up, are you feeling alone? Do you feel like you're all on your own? Are you unsure about your selling skills and unsure who to ask for help? That's the problem that Shruti Kapoor is grappling with. And that's why she decided to launch Wingman. And as I said, I'm so happy. It was so gratifying to have her visit since she's been a sponsor for Sales Babble for quite some time now. And they have this offer for anybody who's listening to Sales Babble to give it a try themselves. Go to trywingman.com/salesbabble and you can learn all about Wingman and get a free trial. And if you're driving, no need to worry about it. I've got links in the show notes at salesbabble.com. Before we go, I've got a favor I'd like to ask of you. I just commissioned a research study to better understand the interests of the Sales Babble listeners and all the challenges that they face. It's a quick survey. It'll only take 2 minutes. If you're on the email list, you've gotten an email on this already. Or if you go to salesbabble.com, on the very front, right on the front page, you'll see where you can do the Sales Babble research study. If you could quickly answer those, I would really appreciate it. With that said, that's all I've got for this week. Next week, we go back to the Tao Te Ching of sales. We talk about fear and success and how success is as dangerous as fear. Until then, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.